Welcome to an all-new episode of the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. I'm Brian Ciano. Thank you so much for joining us as we take our weekly look at everything going on in the world of the combat sports. There was a lot happening, a lot of action, a lot of fights that we need to break down. So let's not take a while to get into it. Let's get right into it first. Let me let you know that later on we're going to be talking to our man, PFL analyst Ian Parker. You heard him on the broadcast this past weekend on ESPN, calling about the fights, talking about the betting angles like we like to do. We'll also talk to BKFC featherweight champ King Kai Stewart, who defended his title out there in Dubai. All that coming up later when we talk about BKFC's fights in Dubai, those two cards. And we'll even preview the PFL fights coming up this weekend. But first, let's talk about what we just saw this past weekend, the start of the 2025 PFL tournament season. And we got it kicked off first. Main event, you had the welterweights going on. Jason Jackson, Andrei Koreshkov. Jackson, of course, the ass-kicking machine, the Jamaican, the 34-year-old cutting in there, going against the Russian Koreshkov. And this was one that people were feeling, especially us, that this could have been a finals matchup. And instead we get the first round, get it as the main event, and it did not disappoint as the ass-kicking machine has a great performance. Koreshkov had his moments, but, you know, especially as you got into the second round, Jason Jackson just started doing what he wanted to do, started picking apart. There were some shots from both guys with the clinch in the first round, moving back and forth. Jackson threw a big shot right before the end of the round that he just missed on. I thought he won that round 10-9 in a close one. Then round two, Jackson goes right after Koreshkov, tosses him to the ground, starts to, you know, try to get position, starts to try to do different things with him. Eventually, later on, you know, gets the back, takes it, starts throwing shots, starts doing different things, and gets the rear naked choke and ends up getting the victory with just over a minute left. A great job by him. There was little issues at one point when he had the back, when he, kind of caught him with the ref said was the back of the head. You listen to the broadcast, it sounded to them like it was, not the area that needs to be protected, but you saw the blood. They gave Koreshkov his time. He took the full 5 minutes, kind of, recalibrate and make sure he was okay before they let the fight continue. Once they did, Jackson right back to taking him down, right back to the ground, gets the rear naked choke, gets the finish as Koreshkov doesn't tap, just goes lights out, and you get Jason Jackson with the victory. Koreshkov is now 28-6. Jason Jackson now 19-5, but he moves on into the next round of the tournament. Well, he'll face Thad Jean, who we'll talk about later on, talk about his fight that was on the prelim card. But Jackson, in his interview after the fight, saying he's been working on the BJJ a lot, and there'll be a lot more of that coming in the future. Let's listen to him in his post-fight.
Hey, I called my shot, and I delivered tonight. Y'all remember that? Remember the face, Jason, the ass-kicking machine. Coming for blood. I got it.
Now, of course, since Gene won earlier in the night, they brought him in, did the face-offs as this was the main event. And at first, they were respectful. It looked like they were, going to be opponents, but not be, jerks to each other. And then all of a sudden, shoving starts, smack talking starts. So these guys will get into it. We heard both of them talk about each other. Can't wait to see that matchup when it materializes. One that, again, could be a finals but instead it's going to be the semis. We'll talk more about the rest of that tournament. Then as the co-main event, you had featherweights. Jesus Pinedo getting back into action against Adam Borch, another guy who's been out for a while. Of course, Borch was a big Bellator fighter. 2022 was the last time we saw him fight. Pinedo, the 2023 PFL featherweight champion. Have not seen him since November 2023. And this really was a little bit back and forth early on. Borch had some good shots, but towards the end of the first round, Pinedo just starts opening up, starts getting a good body kick on Borch, then follows it up with the left-right combo to shake Borch a little bit. Smells blood in the water, attacks, gets the finish as Borch just tries to turtle up and protect himself. The ref steps in, and you get the win by Jesus Pinedo, who moves on to the next round of the tournament. Must have felt good to get back in there and get a victory after almost a couple years here off, at least a year and a half off for him. Borch now 19-3 in MMA. Pinedo is now 24-6-1 in MMA. Says he feels good, sharp, and ready. Says nothing against Braga, who he will be going against. Gabriel Braga won earlier. We'll get into his fight later on. But, he's a good person. He respects him. But that he is going to break him when they meet again. These guys have history, of course. And now we get to see them again in the semifinals in an epic matchup. Should be a great battle. You also have the welterweight Logan Storley going against Joseph Luciano. Of course, Storley, the longtime U.S. wrestler, was supposed to fight Umalatov. But Umalatov missed weight by almost 4 pounds. 3.6 pounds he missed. So they yanked him out of the fight. Not acceptable. Not good enough. You're gone. Joseph Luciano now jumps in. The Australian was 10-3 with 7 submission wins before this fight. He had 1 Bellator Champion Series fight before getting the main call-up here. And really, this was all of Storley. He just dominated using that wrestling, taking his opponent down, trying to get the back, trying to push him up against the cage over and over and over. 10-9s, all 3 rounds, 30-27 across the board. He moves on to the next round of this tournament. We'll see if anybody can stop that wrestling that he showed in his next matchup. Luciano now 10-3. Storley is 17-3. He'll face off against Masayuki Kikuri, who won his fight earlier in the night. Another featherweight battle was Jeremy Kennedy versus Moliv Habibulov. Kennedy, the Canadian, going against the Russian Habibulov, who won the 2021 PFL featherweight tournament. Hadn't fought since 2023. And this one was a victory for Habibulov, who gets a split decision win over Kennedy. A very interesting one, back and forth. Kennedy did not like the decision. It was 29-28 all 3 ways. Habibulov got the win. Kennedy couldn't believe it, but I don't know why he couldn't believe it. Honestly, when I was watching the fight, I thought Kennedy had a good first round. I thought the second and third were Habibulov. I thought he was doing a much better job of doing what he wanted to do, imposing his will, getting some good strikes, getting the takedowns to take his opponent against the mat. I am not sure why Kennedy really thought he won that fight, but he obviously did not. Not in the judges' eyes, not in my eyes. And now Habibulov moves on as well. On the prelim card, you had Berkmanov against Thad Jean, the aforementioned Thad Jean, who will be going on to semis. Obviously, before I get into this, now he was the winner. Berkmanov was the 31-year-old Russian. He was supposed to fight Zendelli, the PFL Europe champ, who was pulled out. So the alternate Thad Jean steps in on short notice. 26-year-old American did what he wanted to do. He came in there, got the victory, showed why he was undefeated. He had a couple wins in the PFL over the last few years, and then now gets another one. He got a first-round KO, 425 into the first round. It was a lot of feeling out early on, and Berkhamov went for the takedown early on, but Jean threw on the guillotine to stop him. Was able to a couple other times stop takedowns to the point that was really selling out to stop the takedowns. Berkhamov, actually faked takedowns and then jumped up trying to throw some knees a couple times to see if he can catch his opponent. He could not. But then later in the fight, as we get late into the round, you got a body kick with a body punch followed right away by Jean with about 40 seconds left. Berkhamov then catches a left hook that drops it to the mat. Jean jumps on his opponent, pounces on him, continues the pummel, gets the finish. Berkhamov moves to 17-3. Jean is now 9-0. And he said it didn't matter who was in front of him. He was supposed to be here a couple of years ago running this tournament and didn't work out. Now he's going to do it here, and he is going to get a badass matchup against Jason, the ass-kicking machine Jackson. These two guys should give us some great stand-up. Can't wait to watch that. As we mentioned before in the featherweight tournament, Gabriel Braga beat Fred Dupraz. Braga, the 26-year-old Brazilian, was supposed to be fighting Yves Landau, but Landau pulled out late. Instead, the alternate fighter, Fred Dupraz, the Canadian, moves up, making his major promotion debut. Fought a lot in Canada before that. And Braga gets the first round of submission, 437. He gets the face crank. His opponent came game. The Canadian came in, was pretty much rushing him, but then he gets Dupraz threw the guillotine on Braga when Braga came for the takedown. Dupraz threw it on there. It was tight. Braga was in trouble, but being the veteran that he is, was able to wait it out, get out, eventually gets the back of his opponent later on when the position switches. Went for the rear naked choke, couldn't get it, but the face crank was enough that the Canadian taps out with 23 seconds left. He's now 8-2, Braga 16-2. You also had Kikuri versus Yanis Bashar that we talked about earlier. Kikuri from Japan, mostly a pancrase fighter. Bashar, the Tunisian fighter, who's now fighting out of Greece for all small promotion fights before this one. Kikuri gets the TKO by round 2 retirement. Bashar was going for some takedowns. Kikuri was doing a good job stuffing them. Towards the end of the first round, you looked like Bashar might have been getting tired. In the second round, Kikuri, by the end of that round, started picking him apart. And then Bashar decides he doesn't even want to get off the stool to answer the bell for the final round. Figured, I guess, that he was too tired to come back from the 2 rounds that he was probably down. You also had Kim over Kelly. Kim making his major promotion debut, beating Kelly, who's now on a 2-fight losing streak after being undefeated before that. He gets the submission win in that fight. Rear naked choke, 4 minutes and 53 seconds into the first round. So those are your winners from the first card of the PFL. We'll catch up with Ian Parker, get his opinion on some of those fights, and maybe even touch on what we're going to see this weekend for the PFL in the second card of 2025.
Okay, what tools can you use to measure those things a bit? And that's where you have like force plates and 3D motion and launch monitors, things like that. But that's all just sort of like measuring what's happening. That doesn't necessarily explain why one guy's really good and another guy's not really good. And that's where there's still kind of like this ongoing, how do you like continue to do research to understand that better? And I think that's going to last well past my lifetime.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
We know what Chris Sale can bring. I was personally high on Schwallenbach. Smith-Shawver, their other starter, looks okay to kind of bad. They need to I don't want to say tread water, so I think that puts it in a bad light, but that's what they ultimately need to do. They need to tread water until Strider gets back, until Acuna gets back, and maybe it's just part of the team morale mentality that we're not at full strength, we need to kick things into gear once those guys get here.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
These guys are barreling everything right now that are hitting well. Pitching is usually ahead of hitting this time of year, but torpedo bats is what we're reading about, Tom, and I think it's hilarious.
Will the pitching be out in front, or are the bats actually this strong? So it's going to develop over the course of weeks. And again, if all teams have the ability to do so, be creative with it and get out there and use it.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
After every round, you guys were still up in each other's face, mouthing off before you went back to your corners, trying to get not just the last punch, but the last word. What was the move between you guys? Obviously, you're in there for your fright.
It didn't cut him. It didn't stunt him. A point wasn't taken away. There's no reason to even mention something like that. You're in a brawl. Things are happening. Accidents happen.
Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid, and we got a lot to get into with our man Ian Parker. So let's bring him on and get right into this because we had a card last week. We got a recap. We have one this week. We got a preview. Plenty of action. Ian Parker always going around and getting the best coverage of MMA. It was great to see him on the broadcast last week talking about the betting angles for the PFL as things were going on. Ian, thanks so much for joining us. I know you're going to be going all around different fight cards this week and to be watching. Let's quick talk about what you saw in Orlando last week. And we'll kind of combine it in bracket format so we can kind of keep these guys together a little bit as much as we can. Starting with the main event, Jason Jackson looking absolutely beast-like against Koreshkov, using that BJJ that he told us after the fight. He's going to use more of that he's been working on, and we're going to see more of that. And he'll be going against Thad Jean, who came in as a late replacement and did a great job against Berkmanov with that great left hand to drop him, then jumps on him late in the round to finish it off. What do you think about these two guys and their first performances in the PFL 2025 tournament?
Well, for one, Thad Jean did exactly what he needed to do and what the tournament's supposed to represent. It's supposed to represent opportunity, especially for guys, for prospects that maybe the MMA world is unfamiliar with, or normally where they wouldn't get this type of opportunity anywhere else. And Thad fought a very tough opponent. A lot of people thought that he was not going to win this fight. And not only did he win, he won by knockout. And then him going in there and just making a statement saying, I don't care what your record is, who your name is, it's my skill set versus yours. He just showed that he's got that star power from a marketing standpoint. He's a young guy. He'll admit he still has things to learn. There was still some, parts of that fight where you kind of look at it like, all right, that's a little bit of an experience, maybe a little bit of being nervous. He hasn't fought in a while either. But that was a very tough opponent, and he didn't just beat him. He knocked him out. And then you got a guy in Jason Jackson who, the PFL is really, they're riding him right now from a marketing standpoint, right? He is somebody that is one of the best in the world, regardless of organization. Very tough, well-rounded fighter from a great gym. Both South Florida guys, coincidentally. And to me, it's kind of like you have the old Lion, although Jackson's not really old per se, and the young Lion. This is the matchup that ideally you want from a PFL perspective, right? Either Jackson goes out there and shows Thad the veteran lesson, or Thad just emerges to superstardom, just like how Dakota did. Dakota had that moment with Tyler Santos. Thad's going to have his opportunity with Jason Jackson. It's one of the most, sought out fights, I think, regardless of organization this year. And it's a shame that it's not happening in the finals, but the fact that we're getting that fight, I think is absolutely awesome.
And then, of course, we also have, after some great results coming out of that fight card, the next matchup will be Logan Storley versus Kikori. Storley, of course, using what he's known for, that great wrestling, to just dominate his opponent over 3 rounds, control him, do what he needs to do to get the unanimous decision, 30-27. And then his opponent, Kikori, another guy coming in here, maybe a little bit lesser known to some of the people who haven't been following outside this organization or some of the other, just following the big ones, coming in there and get a nice TKO after the second round. His opponent just deciding enough was enough. Bashar did not want to, do more. Was trying to get the takedowns, couldn't get it, and was starting to get picked apart on the feet by the end of that second round before Kikuri gets the retirement.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll be very honest with this one. I think the winner of this tournament will come from the Thad Jean, Jason Jackson bracket, but they have to stop the wrestling of Logan Storley, which if you can't stop it, you're in trouble, and he showed that. I think Logan's next fight, he'll be able to wrestle. I was not overly impressed with Kikuri. I thought he gave Bouchard too many opportunities, took too many bigs. It was one of those things where I thought Kikuri was going to dominate in that minus 165 range. I picked him. I'm glad, he won from a betting perspective. That's great. But he was slowing down a little bit too. And if you can't keep a pace and to stop Logan Storley's takedowns, you're in trouble. And Storley went to the well. He did what he needed to do against a guy. He didn't give Luciano any chance to win on the feet. And when it comes to the wrestling, there's not many better than Logan Storley. So, if Kikuri can't stop it, we're going to see another one-way dominant decision probably from Storley. And then Storley, against whoever, Jackson or Thad, will be a very interesting fight.
And then in the other tournament, the main event, the one that, when you talk about Jackson and Thad Jean, and whoever wins that has a good chance of winning it all. The same happens, I think, where you get Pinedo versus Braga. And again, these guys are matching up. They have a long history. They know each other well. Pinedo coming in there and doing what he needs to do against Borch, outweighting him and then landing the big strikes to finish it in that first round. While Braga got the late replacement coming in against him and was able to, just do what he should have did and dominated, the lesser opponent there. Both these guys, a lot of experience, as we said, a lot of experience against each other, and now we get to see them match up again, maybe a little earlier than we would have liked.
I want to give a shout out to Duprat, Braga's opponent, because to your point, he took it on short notice, and he went in there and he tried to finish. He knew he had to either get it done quick or he was going to lose, and he went on his shit. Man, I mean, that guillotine was tight. But very smart fighter, didn't panic. And look, I thought this was fantastic for the PFL. You had a lot of young guys, exciting fighters getting finishes. Braga is a very good fighter. Pinedo is like a bat out of hell. If you're going to go in there with him, you either have to knock him out or you're in for a war that you're probably not going to succeed with. So that fight, look, this is why the tournament does what it does. The tournament's the star, not the fighters per se, right? Because it's the matchups, it is what it is. I'm happy we're seeing this fight. Braga versus Pinedo should be a lot of fun. And on the other side, look, Mobid Aliyev did not look fantastic. Jeremy Kennedy, I thought, fought very well. Kennedy won that fight, very close. But listen, ring rust is a real thing, and that might have been the problem with Mobid Aliyev.
And then we also had great victories on that card by Habalayev. You have, Kim also moving on over Nathan Kelly. But, no disrespect to them and their victories. We got to move on. We got action coming up this weekend. Before we lose you to, traveling back down to Florida and getting ready for all this action, let's, hit on this card that we have coming up on Friday night. It's going to be a lot of matchups, a lot of names that people might not know because we've had a lot of changes. We've talked about this tournament over the couple of weeks. Plenty of, names that have dropped down due to injury or other reason. Now, Leandro Higo is the main event against Reddinghouse. Carmouche versus Joanne is the co-main. Just touch on those in the minute that we have left with you.
Look, Carmouche is getting another opportunity to show that. I think Julian Marquez, not Santos, gives her an opportunity to not fight the number one seeded person. And then you got, like you said, Leandro Higo, he wants Patchy Mix. He's got to win this tournament to get there. So and Jake Hadley from the UFC, he's flying under the radar also. I think we're going to see a lot of surprises on tonight.
We're looking forward to watching that tonight on the second card of the PFL 2025 season from down in Orlando, Florida. Thanks so much, Ian Parker, for joining us. We look forward to watching you and all the guys call all the action as this one goes on and in the coming weeks as well. We still got 2 more after this, so plenty of great action to start the 2025 tournament season with the PFL. Thanks so much, Ian Parker, for joining us.
Did you know? Sports sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups. My tip, try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
They won the game, and a lot of people, I think, are, prematurely writing them off. Like, I heard a lot of people say they're not even making the playoffs this year.
What I give them credit for right now, Scott, I'm not going to pencil them to win the division yet. Let's see how they do. What I give the Red Sox credit for, and this sounds like silly, I give them credit for actually trying this year.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Okay, what tools can you use to measure those things a bit? And that's where you have like force plates and 3D motion and launch monitors, things like that. But that's all just sort of like measuring what's happening. That doesn't necessarily explain why one guy's really good and another guy's not really good. And that's where there's still kind of like this ongoing, how do you like continue to do research to understand that better? And I think that's going to last well past my lifetime.
The Smiley Show.
Welcome back into the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. Always great to catch up with Ian Parker, get his opinion on everything going on in the PFL as we look forward to another card coming up tonight. You can catch it all on ESPN2 and ESPN Plus, 11 Eastern. Let's talk about this. This has been kind of a mangled card. We'll see what kind of fights we get out of this. There were some names that were dropping out left and right. We had some fights that were changed. The order was changed because of fights that were changed. So now the way we end up, this is how the picture stands at the moment. Of course, at the time of recording, we could have a completely different card by the time we get to the start of these fights, as we have seen before. But coming up as the main event was Taila Santos versus Juliana Velasquez, after being changed because of another fight changed before. Santos is out of the tournament. Juliana Velasquez moved down. So we start at the main event of the bantamweight tournament. The bantamweights and the women's flyweights getting under action here, and Leandro Higo versus Josh Reddinghouse. Higo, the 36-year-old Brazilian, is 23-6 in his MMA career, won his last two fights in Bellator and was supposed to fight Magomedov, but Magomedov was pulled. Reddinghouse now gets to move up into the picture here, and we'll see what he can do against this very veteran opponent in Higo. When you got a late replacement like this, you might have the younger fighter, the less known fighter kind of jumping in there trying to make a name for himself, but I'm still going to roll with the veteran because a lot of times they know how to weather the storm. They're going to be more patient. And in a situation like this, that's very, very apropos because, it's not just this fight you're looking at down the line with a possible 3 fights in 5 months. So I'm going to take Higo to be the smart one to get the victory there. Then now, as the co-main event, is Liz Carmouche versus Ilara Joan. Joan is the 30-year-old Brazilian, 12-9 in MMA, former Bellator and PFL fighter. She lost 3 fights in a row before winning her last one in December against Shanna Young. Carmouche, the 41-year-old California girl, the Guerrilla. We've known her a long time. Bellator fighter, UFC fighter, PFL fighter, 22-8 in MMA. Used to hold the title for Bellator before that became obsolete. She's got the wrestling, grappling base. To me, she has obviously a little bit of an age difference that could hurt her. But I think the wrestling and the grappling that she has practiced throughout the years has kept her from taking a lot of damage that some other fighters might have at that age. And I think she can still do what she needs to do to move on in this tournament against Joan in this battle. I mean, we'll see if Joan can use that Brazilian jiu-jitsu that she has, obviously, growing up down there. But a 12-9 record doesn't make me think that she's going to be the most high-level practitioner on the ground to really negate Guerrilla taking her down and trying to grapple with her and dominate her there. Now, another fight that is a change. We were supposed to have Ali Taleb versus Zabui Ruiz. That one was canceled. Francesco Nuzzi was stepping in there. Now he gets a new opponent in Mando Gutierrez. Berserker Francesco Nuzzi is 28-year-old Italian, 10-1 in his career, mostly Italian fights besides a 1-0 contest on a PFL card on August of 2022. Mando Gutierrez, a 28-year-old American, steps into this fight now, 10-3. He's got 6 wins by submission, coming in on a 2-fight win streak. This one's going to be very interesting. I haven't seen much or any of either of these guys. I haven't. I don't know if you have, but this one's going to be hard to pick. I'm going to leave this one off of my betting card, but this one should be very interesting to see 2 guys that are going to be hungry, trying to make their debut and see what they can do to make a name for themselves in the PFL. Next is Kasum Kasimov versus Jason Wetzel. Kasimov, the 30-year-old Russian, 16-1 in his MMA career, 9 wins by submission. Was supposed to fight Cian Clark, the Irish fighter who unfortunately suffered that MCL injury and is out now. So now he'll be fighting Wetzel, the 33-year-old American, 10-2 in his MMA career, 4 KO TKO, 5 by decision, has on a 3-fight win streak. It's going to be very interesting to see if he can keep it standing and try to batter his opponent like he has shown in other fights. But I think that Kasimov is the one who's obviously the play here. Try to take it to the ground, smother his opponent, and either get the submission or go the distance and get the points. I think that's the way it's going to be for him. Then we also have next, as we said, Juliana Velasquez moving down this card, and she gets her fight against the former on-call fight there that we used to have earlier in that. We have always these backup fights on these cards for this reason. Ekaterina Shakalova, the Ukrainian, the 27-year-old, who's 8-2 in MMA, who's 1-1 in Bellator, coming off a decision loss to Aspen Ladd last May. She goes against Velasquez, who is 13-3 in MMA, the former Bellator and PFL fighter. 7 wins by decision, 5 by KO TKO. I'm going to lead, obviously, on Velasquez, even though she's 38, over a decade older than her opponent. That experience, like we talked to with Higo, coming in against a late replacement, that could be tough for a younger fighter to train for someone, then all of a sudden you switch up the game plan, switch up everything you need. But that's better for a veteran like Juliana Velasquez. You also have Matos versus Hadley. Hadley, the former UFC fighter, is trying to make a name for himself here in the PFL. That's coming up later in that card. You have Wantabi versus Bishop. All those going on tonight on ESPN2 and ESPN+. So a lot of great fights, a lot of changes from what we saw earlier when we were previewing these cards, when we were previewing these tournaments, but hopefully still ends up with a great night of fights for the PFL in the 2025 tournament season.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of
15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We know what Chris Sale can bring. I was personally high on Schwallenbach. Smith Shawver, their other starter, looks okay to kind of bad. They need to I don't want to say tread waters. I think that puts it in a bad light, but that's what they ultimately need to do. They need to tread water until Strider gets back, until Acuna gets back, and maybe it's just part of the team morale mentality that we're not at full strength, need to kick things into gear once those guys get here.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
I'm still optimistic eventually this will happen and they'll get it together. I mean, if Florida can get their act together, Sam, with the tribes, I believe that California can too.
It would bring a lot of money to the tribes, which is also something they really care about. It's an $8 billion market. Conservatively, it could be even more when it legalizes. The sports books would be sharing revenue with the tribes, essentially doing all their operations and forking over a percentage directly to the tribes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
After every round, you guys were still up in each other's face, mouthing off before you went back to your corners, trying to get not just the last punch, but the last word. What was the move between you guys? Obviously, you're in there for your fight.
It didn't cut him. It didn't stunt him. A point wasn't taken away. There's no reason to even mention something like that. You're in a brawl. Things are happening. Accidents happen.
Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. Now we got to move on and talk about the BKFC, who was in action doubly last week. Dubai, 2 cards for the BKFC, back-to-back cards. Of course, Friday was the original one, the 4th and 5th. The next day they have another card, all loaded with some great fights, all topped with belts on the line, 2 belts in each card, and they were, some great fights throughout. Let's talk about some of the top fights here while we have some time on both cards and try to get you the recap as much as we can. Now, of course, the first one, BKFC 71 out there in Dubai. That was headlined by a welterweight title fight between Austin No Doubt Trout versus Carlos Trinidad Snake. Trout, of course, the champion in the welterweight division, 39-year-old former WBA light middleweight champ, 37-5-1 record in boxing, undefeated in the BKFC. Trinidad Snake, the 29-year-old, also undefeated in the BKFC until this fight. Got a chance against Trout, and to me, just doesn't take advantage of it whatsoever. 6 rounds, because we went the extra round. Trout gets a split decision, 58-55, 55-58, 57-56. Yeah, very weird scoring, especially considering that they're saying on the broadcast, the 6th round is supposed to be the only one that really counts. If you go to a 6, if you got a draw, then the only one that matters is a 6. Obviously, that's not the way from that scoring, but I just don't get how any judge got this fight for Carlos Trinidad Snake, let alone to give it in a such lopsided favor to Carlos Trinidad Snake. Now, there wasn't much action throughout this fight. This was probably one of the more boring BKFC title fights that I've ever seen, comparable to when we saw the Juggernaut versus Chris Camozzi. Just a lot of, feeling out, a lot of respect for the other guy, so you don't really throw and keep yourself open. But I just thought it was a bad fight that I give to Trinidad Snake, I guess, kind of by default. Because, as they say, you want to be the champ, you have to beat the champ. And I don't think Carlos Trinidad Snake did anything to beat the champ. He thought he should have won. I thought it should have not even gone to a 6. I don't know how it went to a 6th round. To me, it was Trinidad Snake getting the first round. Trinidad Snake, having feeling out, maybe throwing a little bit more, and he gets the knockdown early on. That's the only way this should have been even close. I still don't think it should have gone to a 6. I still think Trout won in 5. But you get the 10-8 round from dropping Trout after he takes a big swing. You catch him, he goes down. After that, I give it 10-9 Trout for round 2. Still a lot of feeling out. 10-9 for Trout round 3. A lot of feeling out. No one really doing much. Champ throwing a little bit more. That evens it up. 28-28 going into the 4th round. I got round 4, 10-9 Trout. He goes up 1. Round 5, 10-9 Trout goes up 2. I thought it should have been 48-46. 5 rounds. Done. Thanks for staying here, even though this bored you to death. Let's move on. Instead, we get a 6th round where both guys threw more. Both guys are, obviously face the desperation of this could be the one that decides it all. Still, I gave the advantage to Trout, and I thought he won the fight. He gave respect to Carlos Trinidad Snake, said he had a great fight, said that he made him change his game plan. I thought he danced for 6 rounds for the most part. I don't know it was a great fight for anybody, for either of them, but especially not for the guy trying to take the belt. But here's what Trout said after the fight.
I need to go down 155 and get that belt from, say, Baboon or Franco Tanavia. That's what I need to do. I got to thank Jerry, Rasha, and I got to thank the Queen Jules for helping me get ready. My mindset had to be strong with fighting this dude, Carlos.
All right. Trinidad Snake even got a little love, got on mic, said he knew he won that fight and will be a champion eventually. He might be a champion eventually, but it's not because he won that fight. I expected more from him. We've seen the power from him. Obviously, he has respect for the champ, but you got to do more if you want to take that belt. He falls to 6-1. Trinidad now 4-0 in the BKFC. You also had the women's strawweight title on the line. Britton Hart versus Ty Emery. Emery, the 38-year-old American who's been fighting mostly in Thailand for the BKFC. Besides that Risen crossover fight in Japan. Hart, of course, a 35-year-old American, strawweight champ, has been picking women apart ever since she got that title, and she continued to do that again. Gets the unanimous decision victory over Emery, 50-45, 48-47 on 2 cards. I'm not sure why you had a 48-47 on 2 cards. Maybe I guess that could have been okay if you give the first round to Emery when they're both kind of going back and forth, both cut after the first. But I thought that Hart was picking apart throughout that fight. Maybe you could have given the 5th round to Emery after she got a little bit more desperation. But I still think just about every round ended with Hart with a flurry, just clinching the round. I thought she won those before those, but especially a lot of time in judges, what have you done lately? And when you end the round on a flurry and you end kind of picking apart your opponent, that really gets you to clinch that round. I thought she won 4 out of all 5. I thought it was 50-45. I thought Emery gave a spirited, effort in the first round. maybe pushed again in the 5th round. But I thought that it went exactly like we thought it would. Britain Hart on the outside, moving around, picking apart her opponent, using that 1-2 over and over. That, you know, that jab cross just was used to perfection. Threw some jabs in, some hooks in here or there, but it was mostly just the 1-2, 1-2, picking apart Emery, making her face swell to almost double its size. I thought Hart clearly won that easily. She said that Emery earned a lot of respect from her, and she has earned everyone's respect. She's the face of the BKFC. She keeps winning. She now ties the Misfit for the most wins by a women's fighter in the BKFC now, as she is 10-3. You also had a great middleweight battle between Johnny El Toro Tello and Saba, the sleek Sheik Hamasi. This was very interesting. Tello making his BKFC debut. Hamasi, the former UFC vet, had been 1-0 in the BKFC. He came out big time swinging. It looked like he was going to pick apart his opponent, that he was getting some great rounds here and there on the first and the second. Tello was getting swollen over his one eye. It looked like it was going to be a long night for him, but he comes back. He gets a knockdown in round 3, make it 10-8 round, tie things up. Gets another knockdown in round 4, gets multiple knockdowns in round 5, and gets the victory. A great job by him, 48-45. He had a great comeback win, making his BKFC debut. It looked like it was going to be a long night, but he turned around real quick. Great fight for him. You also had Alexei Oleinik on that fight against Geronimo Dos Santos on that card. Dos Santos just pummels him, finishes in the first round, and a very, very sad story of Oleinik, the boa constrictor. Said even before this fight, doesn't want to fight anymore. The guy's in his late 40s, but got divorced, left everything in the U.S. to go back to Russia, left all his money, his family, his house, and needs to fight to survive, to eat. Not the mindset you want to be in, and the beating he took because of it was hard to watch. Then the following night, you had Kai Stewart fighting for his title, as well as a inaugural women's featherweight title. We'll get into both those coming up later in the show. But next up, we're going to talk to King Kai Stewart, find out about his fight, talk about the things that he did to retain his belt. Before we get out of here, though, I want to just say more about this card. He had some great performances also by Alami, who had a 3rd-round KO win. You had Kahiri, who had a 3rd-round TKO win. You had Iliev, who had a KO win in round 2. You had Ally with a KO in round 1. Split decision win for Ahmed. And you had some other great wins as well. So, it was very interesting to see when you saw some posts on social media. This fight, obviously, as we said before, both these cards were in the same place. It was a tennis stadium, an outdoor stadium. So you got to see maybe if you saw it on social media like I did, the scene of the card, the outdoor venue in the Middle East is obviously not something you usually want to do in many times. Probably was a little cooler now than when you're sitting there in the summer, and so it was bearable, but you could see it on the sweat of these guys. Trinidad Snake and Trout barely fought, but were doused in sweat throughout the fight because of how, because of the venue, because of being outside in the Middle East. But it was a great card overall. You had Conor McGregor there. You had the king of MMA, one of the first founders of MMA, Renzo Gracie there putting on belts. And it was some great performances by both. And, we talked about those fights last week, saying we thought that Trout would get the decision victory. He did. We thought that Britain Hart would get the decision victory. She did. So both those ended up like we thought they would. Great performance by Emery. I'm not going to give that to Trout. He's a great fighter, one of the best in the BKFC in this division especially, but did not put on his best performance. But a great fight by Emery trying to battle and win that belt that she unfortunately could not. But as we said, there was another card. There was another day, and we will get more into that later on in the show. We're going to be talking about King Kai defending his belt. We're going to be talking about Jessica Borga fighting for that title against Rankin. We'll even talk about some of the other fights that we saw, some great action on that card, including a nice TKO win in the 4th round by a very upset-minded Gaffey. We thought Brendan Allen would have a great performance. He did not. We'll get into all that later on the show. But first, let's talk to King Kai Stewart about his latest title defense against Tommy Steerdam out there in Dubai.
What an impressive debut it was for Mackenzie Gore of the Washington Nationals. He ended up having the most strikeouts of anybody thus far in a Major League Baseball game this season. Buy or sell, George? Mackenzie Gore will be a top 15 fantasy baseball pitcher this season. Top 15. Buy or sell?
You know, these questions are made up by Sam Yarnell, our producer, man behind the glass here. Who's a Washington Nationals fan here? You ever get the feeling that he just made this where you have to say buy? All right, because top 15? Yeah, I think he'll be top 15. Come on, Sam, make him top 10. Make it a little bit more interesting. Maybe even top 5. Yeah, I think he's got the upside to be that. Once again, he is a good pitcher anyway. Once a top prospect here, you're pitching in a good pitcher's ballpark here. I think the upside is there for him to be much better than top 15. Top 5 may be pushing it, but I think he'll be inside the top 10. So yes, I am well on board the Mackenzie Gore train.
All right, yeah, I think that I am going to buy this too, man. I don't know. He's just, and again, it's not just that one start for me. I mean, I think I have the video somewhere. I was like literally sitting behind home plate for one of his starts in Palm Beach, and I was like, wow, like this guy's stuff looks really, really good. Yeah, I'm going to buy it too. I think he's a potential Cy Young Award candidate. As George said, you're dealing with bigger markets and bigger names with LA and some of the other teams. Arizona's got some great pitchers too. But I think he's definitely in the mix. And look, do I think he's a top 2 guy? No. Do I think he's a top 15 guy? Yes. I'll buy that. As his season, I think, is going to be a special one for him.
Fantasy sports today. Weekends starting at 8 a.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Listen, our featherweight champion, King Kai Stewart, is a unique puzzle. Understand that. A high-level wrestler with toughness and grit to beat the band. That's a tough ask. You think you come in here with these boxing skills, he bull rushes you, turns the corner of the shoulder, and walk rates, and he's only getting better. The sky is the limit for King Kai Stewart. Well done, King. Congratulations on closing out the show on this monumentous event.
That was Conor McGregor talking about the king of the featherweight division for the BKFC. That is King Kai Stewart, who is joining us now, still the champion of the featherweights. King, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate your time. I'm surprised that we're getting you on already. You know, probably a long trip back from Dubai. How was it going out there? I mean, obviously the fight was great for you. We'll talk about that in a minute, but how was the experience? I saw you were out there early. You guys are fighting outdoors in this this tennis stadium. I'm sure the heat was, maybe factoring in as you're doing your weight cut and things like that. And then I saw you even getting into the culture completely. You had the traditional garb going as well. You seemed like you enjoyed yourself before you got in there and enjoyed yourself by defending your title again.
A lot of people see me as the king of just the featherweight division, but in reality, I think we're crossing that bridge. I'm the king of the BKFC. Nobody does it like me, and I don't think anybody will do it like me. But with that being said, yeah, Dubai was one hell of an experience. I'm from a very small town, like literally 50 total people in Loma, Montana. So being able to fight under the huge lights of Dubai, and then not to mention the royal families, some insane influencers, some just like crazy people that I maybe would have never expected to be watching me fight, but they were there and they know my name, and I am going to help BKFC continue to do its thing. Like we just heard Feldman on the Bare Knuckle show say that they already want us back, and I really hope and I truly believe that I played a big part in that. So forever, and I will forever be grateful for the experience, and hopefully get to go back.
Well, it will make sense that they would want you back. There was, 2 great nights of cards, lots of great fights, a lot of knockouts, a lot of finishes, 4 titles. We'll say 3 of the 4 were great fights, in my opinion. I won't say which one. I won't put you in that position. But yours was one of them. You had a great performance, and it was just an awesome card, an awesome experience, I'm sure, for all of you guys, and Dave and Connor and everybody else that was there. But now tell me about the fight itself. Obviously, you're a guy who comes in there, and you have a lot of pride in kind of breaking your opponents. And of course, he came in there confident, thinking he could beat you, with the experience that he had in, other fights. But it was a completely different matchup. When you got in there, you had the head movement. You were, picking him apart. You were bullying him up. It even seemed by maybe the first into the second round, like, you kind of see towards in that first round that in his face, it seemed like he realized it wasn't going to be his night, that you were doing whatever you wanted to do, and he couldn't get off and couldn't get his shots in. And, I know in your opinion, and probably many others, it could have been even worse, given that there were two potential knockdowns that were taken away from you.
Yeah, and I am a big critic because, one, I'm a professional fighter, and I train a certain rule set. I train to be the best possible fighter I can be, and it seems like every single fight it's 2v1 in that ring. But yeah, as long as I'm imposing my will, having fun, doing my thing, it really doesn't matter what the ref is going to do, because nobody's going to take this from me. Like I said, and in that order, do my thing, having fun, doing what I train to do. As long as I do that, it doesn't matter what the ref thinks he's gonna do. But people make mistakes, so I don't want to dwell on that. It's just we're gonna get better from it. And man, 4 title fights, and I got to be the last headliner. What a show. Me and Duran had 3 title fights on that card. So is there going to be 5 on the next one just to keep leveling up my events? I don't know. But yeah, I'm super grateful to be able to just I go into training, and I don't train for a fighter. I train. I want to learn like 4 or 5 new techniques. A fight camp. I want to grind my ass off, drill it 10,000 times, and like basically every combo that I drilled 10,000 times, you saw it in the fight. So now next fight, there's going to be a new set of tools that I'm going to drill 10,000 times, and it's going to be fun.
Well, talking about leveling up, you talked about in the post-fight about how you've cleaned out this division and there really isn't much else for you to do. Is this leveling up that you're talking about going to another division? I'm assuming it would be going up in weight because you're already cutting down to 145. I don't know if you can make 135 if you want to put yourself through that. But are you planning on going to another division, trying to becoming a 2-belt champion as others have? Are you looking for a fight against Palomino or Tenagli or guys like that at 155? What is in the plans for King Kai? I know you always are looking ahead, always thinking about what's next.
Well, we looking up and down the 155 division. Palomino dominated HD, but I dominated HD. I think that's a great fight for me, but he doesn't have a belt. Let's see how the 155 division plays out for themselves and see what we can do. It's going to boil down to contract negotiations. Like there's a UK featherweight title. Let's unify the world title. Let me fight that guy. But if they want to pay me big money, I'll step up and I'll fill big shoes. So this is a sport of a lot of danger, and I really hope that I've proven that I am a company man, and I've proven that I'm here to stay, and I'm here to just continue to take over, and nobody's going to take this from me. So I'm super excited for my contract negotiation. I think we're in a really good spot. And yeah, 2 belts is definitely in my future. It's going to boil down to timing because obviously the 155 division now, with even Trout saying he wants to move down, is pretty interesting. But with that being said, HD, though he did get dominated, he was still throwing big shots. He landed a lot bigger shots on Palomino than he did me, and I wasn't really impressed. Palomino's getting older. He is definitely a former GOAT. He has done amazing things in this sport, but it's just my time. So whatever Feldman wants to do with me, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm here to make money, and I'm here to get my Montana ranch with a creek running through it. So whatever glass I got to crawl through to get to that, I'm willing to do.
Well, you have plenty of time, still young in your career, but still, dominating and showing people how much of a badass you are, getting better with every fight. And as you said, you keep leveling up. You've gone from performing in Montana to performing in Miami to performing in Dubai. I don't even know how you go further up. What venue would be next? We'll see. But a great job by you once again, King Kai Stewart, defending your featherweight title, showing once again why you are the best at that division and one of the best in the BKFC overall. And we look forward to seeing you fight again. Thanks so much for joining us. And we look forward to seeing what's coming up next for you.
Thank you, guys. Pound for pound number 1. Let's go.
New to casinos and not sure what to play? Well, try Blackjack first. It has a lower house advantage compared to other table games, making it especially player-friendly. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We know what Chris Sale can bring. I was personally high on Schwallenbach. Smith-Shawver, their other starter, looks okay to kind of bad. They need to I don't want to say tread waters. I think that puts it in a bad light, but that's what they ultimately need to do. They need to tread water until Strider gets back, until Acuna gets back, and maybe it's just part of the team morale mentality that we're not at full strength, need to kick things into gear once those guys get here.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back on the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. Thanks so much to King Kai Stewart for joining us after getting back from Dubai. I'm sure it was a long flight getting back here, coming on with us pretty quickly to talk about his title defense. Let's talk about that card and that fight right now. You had the following day after you had the Friday, April 4th card in Dubai. You had Saturday, April 5th. You got back-to-back cards, same place. Probably a lot of the same fans coming and seeing these great fights that we had. Two more titles were on the line, and one of those was King Kai Stewart's, who fought against Tommy Stratum, the 39-year-old South African, who's coming off a third-round stoppage off of John Spencer in February, going against a 24-year-old American featherweight champ. And we thought that King Kai would get the decision. He did. So that's three that we picked of these title fights. It was great to have that happen. And 50-43 on all three cards. This one was never in doubt when it got to the judges, and it should have been even less in doubt, as we will discuss right now. Round one, both guys were coming forward early. Stratum got a good shot in about 46 seconds into it, but you had King Kai doing a great job, just staying calm, moving all around, being hard and elusive to hit, and he put Stratum to the mat early in that round. Comes right back in, lands another big right off the rejoin. He had lots of movement, confusing his opponent. Stratum looked flummoxed at times in that, as he got later in that round, looks like he was getting frustrated that he couldn't get his hands on his opponent. 10-8 round for Stewart. In the second round, you had him going down briefly again, Stratum in the first round, but ruled a slip by Dan Mergliata, despite the punch landing. Stewart was landing good body shots throughout, got an overhand right later in the round. 10-9 round for Kai Stewart, even though it should have been another 10-8, so he's up 20-17. Round three, picks him apart again, as it continued to be another round where we should have had a knockdown. And I'll give Dan Mergliata this one, because at first, when I'm watching the fight, you see the way that Stratum comes down, it seemed almost like he slipped and bounced off Kai Stewart and fell down. But then when you watch the replay later on, he clearly lands a right on him as Stratum's coming in, lands the right, and that's why he lost his balance and bounced off the champ, ended up on the mat. Mergliata rules it a slip, so another 10-9 for Kai Stewart. That could have been a 10-8, 30-26 after that. 4-5, pretty much all the same. Don't get the knockdowns in those, but 10-9 rounds for the champ. You get another knockdown in the fourth round, not one in the fifth round. So it's another 10-8, another 10-9. 50-43 is the final tally. I mean, it really could have been, if you get those other two knockdowns in there, you could have had 4 10-8 rounds. It could have been a situation where Stratum only gets, 41 points out of possible 50. That's how much the champ dominated this fight. A great job by him. Stratum goes to 4-1. Stewart's 8-0 in the BKFC. Saying that it was 2-1 in the ring afterwards. feeling like the ref was working against him.
You know what? I just put my wrestler pace on this guy. I broke him just like I did the Miami Muppets, just like I did the cop, and now everybody, the king knows what the he wants, and guess what? The king is going, oh, there's 2 belts on my shoulder. I'm pretty sure that's what's next. I'm going to do whatever I want to. I've cleaned out the 145 division, and I break everybody.
Talking about chasing another title like his idol, Conor McGregor, was there to put the belt on and wanted to be like him. Now maybe going to be a 2-division champ like him. We will see what the future holds for Kai Stewart, as we heard from him, because he's beaten everybody in that featherweight division. The only one who might have had a claim to get a title shot lost earlier. We'll see if we can get to Brandon Allen and what happened to him. But first, let's talk about the inaugural women's featherweight title between Hannah Rankin and Jessica the Black Widow Borga. Rankin, the 34-year-old Scot, former glove boxing champ, WBA and IBO champ, was 13-8 in her career there. 1-0 in the BKFC going against Borga, the Black Widow, who, the 35-year-old American, was unbeaten in the BKFC, 2-0. Trained at Shift Combat down there in Florida, where we've seen a lot of great champions come out of. And she ends up being the newest one as she gets the title here, beating Rankin by a first-round KO 32 seconds in. Rankin was coming out aggressive, trying to put Borga on the back foot, landed some decent shots, but eventually you get to the point where Borga lands a right combo that puts Rankin right on her face. Dan Miragliotta waves it off right away, 20 seconds in, no even need for a 10 count. She was out cold. Black Widow gets the title. She moves to 3-0, says she's only getting more dangerous due to her team and what she's learned from them, and they can send anybody her way. It will not matter. Can't wait to see what is next for that division. This is the first time we've seen this title be up there, the inaugural belt. Who else moves up in weights? That's been fighting at lower weight classes because the BKFC hasn't had this before. Let's see what kind of fights we can get going on. We will see. But as we said, also had a featherweight title between Nico Gaffey and Brandon Allen. Allen was number 2 in the featherweight division, looking to go to, was 5-1, looking to go to 6-1. He will not. He goes to 5-2. Gaffey had a great fight. Allen was starting to come alive, second, third round. Looked like he was going to be able to pick apart his opponent. Maybe no. Gaffey gets the TKO in the 4th round, drops him for a 3rd time, ends the fight right before the end of the round. 1 second left. He can't be saved by the belt. Gaffey gets the win. Allen no longer a contender. That is it for us here on the Combat Sports Report. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We'll come back next week and recap the latest PFL card with you here on SportsGrid.
We all know nothing beats the energy of playing live roulette in a casino. But playing roulette online sure does have its perks. At the casino, you'll average 40 to 50 spins per hour. But online, you're looking at 100 to 150. The more spins, the more chance of wins. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of
15.5 points live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.